all I have done every single day of my working life for the last 15 years or so is to help people convert their income into financial security and lasting wealth. So in this video, I want to show you the exact step-by-step playbook that I've developed over the years that will basically give you everything that you'll need to do this for yourself. And honestly, these steps are pretty much all you're going to need to start seeing your hard-earned income finally start turning into real financial security and lasting wealth. So settle in. It's going to be a bit of a longer video, but I promise you it will be worth it. So grab a pen and paper and let's get into it. Okay, step one, minimize and optimize tax drag. Right, so I was recently chatting with a mate of mine and he'd just flown back from Dubai where he lives. And he was going on about how he pays literally 0% income tax. Zero. And every time I hear that, I'm like, man, just imagine how easy it would be to grow your money if that was the same thing here in the UK. But here's the thing, we're obviously not in Dubai, right? We've got the tax man breathing down our necks. But what if I told you that there is a way to create your own little version of that, and it's this very first step? So after doing this for 15 years, I've seen one thing that works better than almost anything else, and for most people at building wealth. And honestly, it's something that you probably already have access to, but you just aren't using properly. Your workplace pension. Now, I know pensions sound boring, and why would you start with that one? But hang on with me, because the second you figure out the maths of all of this, it's actually wild. So picture this. You earn £1, right? Just £1. If you're a high rate taxpayer in the UK, so a 40% taxpayer or whatever sort of taxpayer you might be, by the time that pound actually hits your bank account, let's say in this case, you're only going to get 60p. That means the tax man and national insurance and all that sort of stuff has taken about 40 odd p's worth of it. Not exact, but you get the point. Now, that is mental when you think about it, right? That's nearly half of your money just gone. And again, it might actually be literally half of your money if you are, say, an additional rate taxpayer, or you're flirting with that £100,000 tax cliff. But here's where it gets interesting. With your workplace pension, you can take that full pound, the entire thing, and put it straight into your pension with no tax taken. And then, and this is the crazy part, your employer will often match it, right? So that £1, not only is it not becoming 60p in your bank account, it's becoming £2 because of that employer match. So let me say that once again. £1 can become £2 just by using your workplace pension properly. And all you have to do is tick a little box. Look, I was working with this client last year. He was like a software developer or something to do with computers, right? He was earning about, I think, 60 grand-ish. He wasn't in his workplace pension because in his words, he was like, I'm far too young to lock away money that I might need in the interim before I'm 55, 57. And I was like, yeah, fair enough. That, like, there is an argument for that. I totally understand that. But then I showed him these numbers, right? By not being in the scheme that he was in, he was basically throwing away about 3 grand a year from his employer, just leaving it on the table. It's like saying no to a direct pay rise. Guess what he did? He signed up the very next day. And 1 year later, when I saw him again, he was like, I don't even miss that money that's come from my paycheck, but I'm already £1,500 up in my pension that I would have never had before. One conversation, one form, changed his entire financial future. Now, obviously, there's a bit of a catch, right? Of course, with a pension, you can't touch this money until you're 55. It will probably be 57 by the time that you get here. So yeah, look, it's locked away for that period of time. But honestly, this is the single biggest weapon that you have in order to actually turn your income into wealth and create real financial security. This is the best vehicle we have got by an absolutely country mile. Nothing even comes close to that kind of return that you get. That is why It is the very first step that I talk to with anyone about keeping more of your income and turning it into lasting wealth. Because the key to all of this is closing that gap between your gross income, what you earn, and your net pay, which is what lands in your bank account or the stuff that you keep. The one way to do that, workplace pensions, right? So quick one, if you want more details, more detailed breakdowns of everything that we're covering today, I send out weekly emails with practical tips on pensions, budgeting, investing, all that good stuff. Links in the description if you fancy joining. No spam, just actionable stuff. Now, taking advantage of the tax optimization of your pension is step one. But that's only really dealing with that issue of gross income, right? The money that hits the money before it hits your account. But what about the money that actually lands in your bank account? Now, that is where most people fall down. Step two is give every pound a job, okay? I've noticed something after doing this job for so long. My entire relationship with money has changed. Like, I used to kind of get emotional about it, right? You know, like stressed when money went out, what came in, how markets were doing, up and down. And now they're just digits on a screen, right? Numbers on a spreadsheet. I know it sounds really cold, but honestly, it's been the most freeing thing ever. Because once you stop treating money like this emotional thing and start treating it like a tool, like something that has a job that it needs to do, everything changes. Think about it, right? You work bloody hard for your money, right? You're getting up, you're going to work, you're dealing with stress. So when you get paid, shouldn't it be working just as hard as you? And this is where most people mess up. Honestly, they get paid, money just sits there in their current account and just kind of sits around doing nothing. And they just kind of hope that it lasts until the end of the month. There's no plan, there's no structure, and your money just leaks away on random stuff. So I often use what's called a percentage-based budget, right? Nothing new under the sun, nothing magic, but you know what? I found this works pretty consistently across all different income levels. So whether you're earning 25 grand or 125 grand, the percentages stay exactly the same. You've probably all seen this before. It's the 50, 30, 20 rule, and it's dead simple, and it gives you a great framework to start from. 50% of whatever money lands into your bank account, your net pay, goes to your needs, right? So that's your fixed costs, your rent, your bills, your food, shopping, anything that is a genuine, I need this to live. 30% goes to your wants, Netflix, week away, holidays, luxuries, eating out, all that sort of stuff, new trainers, whatever you want. That is what I call the single account method also, where you just track how much money's in that account, but stick that in there, spend everything you want. Now, the 20% goes to future you, right? Saving, investing, building wealth, doing all that sort of stuff. But here's the clever bit. When payday comes, you want to immediately remove or move that 30% into a completely separate account. I'm talking a completely different bank, if possible. This becomes that spending account, like we've said. And here's why it's genius. You can spend every penny in that account completely guilt-free. So it doesn't matter if you splurge it all on day one, you just haven't got great spending for the rest of the month. But the point is, it's already budgeted. You've already done the responsible thing by allocating 50% to your needs and 20% to your future self. Seriously, just guilt-free spending. No more, should I be buying this? What am I doing? Can I afford this? Just spend it. The other thing this does as well, and this is huge to be honest with you, because I think we all struggle with this, is it fights lifestyle inflation. You know what I'm talking about, right? You get a pay rise or you earn a little bit more money and suddenly you earn that more money and suddenly your outgoings just creep up and match it. New car, fancier flat, meals out, holidays, and you just end up in the same position as before, just with like nicer stuff, I guess. With percentage budgeting, you can, when you actually get your pay rise, your spending does increase, but so does your saving. Everything scales together. That is the magic of it. So the question is, Now, you've got those 50, 30. What do you actually do with that 20% future you budget? Where does it go? Where do you put it? Well, that completely depends on like where you are in your life, which brings me to my next point. Step 3, understanding the 6 steps to financial security. So here's something that has actually kind of blown my mind over the years, right? I have worked with hundreds and hundreds of people, all with different goals, different incomes, different lives, right? Some want to retire early, some want to buy a house, some just want to stop worrying about money. On the surface, everybody is different, right? But here's the spooky part. Underneath all of that, there's the same sort of pattern. There's 6 steps that just work every single time. It's like we're all different people with different lives, but we all need the same sort of foundation to achieve financial freedom. If you follow these steps in order, or as you can, you basically can't fail at building wealth. I've never seen this not work. So what I want you to do is think about that 20% budget allocation that you've got. Think about that 20% net pay and then run it through these 6 steps. Now, some of the steps you'll be able to fly through because they might not be fully relevant to you, or some of them might take months and months and months, even years. That's fine. It's just about understanding the order of priority for you. Yes, they're in a certain order, but you can tailor these to meet your objectives. So, the first one, protect your income. What I want you to imagine is that you've got that machine, a magic money machine in your basement that's just every single month without fail spitting out $5,000, just spits out cash. Now tell me, how quickly would you insure that machine in case it breaks down? I bet you before your car, before your phone, before anything else. Of course you would. You protect that money printing machine like your life depending on it. Here's the thing. You are that machine. You print money every single month by going to work. But most people never think to protect, to insure themselves. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen this play out. Someone will have everything planned out, investments sorted, they're on the property ladder, they have got projects in plan, and then they get seriously ill, can't work, 2, 3, 4, 5 months, whatever. The whole thing just collapses. All of that planning gone. This actually happened to a friend of mine who was a graphic designer, self-employed, doing really well, saved up about 15 grand, he was telling me, for his emergency fund. Then he got this really serious back problem, like couldn't even sit at like a desk chair for more than 5 minutes, and he couldn't work for like 6 months, I think it was, and he burned through those savings in no time. He had to move like back in with his parents, I think. This guy was like 32. Talk about wake up call, right? And that is why this is step 1. Before you even think about investing or saving or buying a house or property or whatever, all that exciting stuff, you need to protect the single greatest asset that you have, your ability to earn money. So we can fix this real quick with something called income protection insurance, right? Basically, if you're off sick and you can't work for a little while, it starts paying you out a percentage of your salary. Now, the key thing here is matching what's called your deferred period with your existing sick pay. So if your job, for instance, they'll have some sort of sick pay entitlement, whatever that is, match your deferred period of your policy to that. So for example, if you get 2 weeks sick pay, then have a 2-week deferred period, which just means that after the period of time that is, the income protection will pay in. Or for example, if it's 6 months, but you work in the NHS or something like that, set your deferred period to 6 months. Again, can't go into too much detail in this video, but that is exactly what you need to be doing. So most workplace sick pay runs out pretty quick, and you don't want to be left on statutory sick pay. I can tell you that. So income protection sorts out if you can't work. But here's a potentially more uncomfortable question. what happens to your family and the people that depend on you if something happens to you permanently, let's say, reading between the lines. And that is why step 2 is protect your dependents. Now, when I was growing up, I had this mate whose family just seemed absolutely loaded, right? They had like a massive house, a couple of nice cars, always on like the nicest holidays abroad, skiing in the winter and like all the best places. And his dad, I think, worked in the city, and everyone knew he was kind of raking it in, right? But really, really sadly, his dad died. Heart attack, completely out of nowhere, absolutely awful. And I didn't really see them much after that, but about a year later, I noticed that they'd moved out of that house that they live in, much smaller place, and all the fancy cars were gone. And I remember asking my mum what happened at the time. She was like, oh, apparently he didn't have any life insurance or anything like that, and they couldn't afford the mortgage anymore. And that's always kind of stuck with me, right? Because here's a guy earning serious money, providing this amazing lifestyle for his family, and then one day he's gone and they've got nothing just because he never sorted out some cheap life insurance. Now, look, I know this isn't sexy. I know this is not what you want to hear. I know this is not building and growing and saving. It's not exciting, and no one wants to think about dying. But if you've got people who depend upon your income, so partner, kids, even your parents, right? Anyone that is financially dependent upon your income, it's your responsibility. You need to make sure that they're looked after if something happens to you. That is what real wealth building looks like to me, certainly. Not chasing some crypto returns or day trading or whatever's trendy this week. It's making sure that your family is protected. It's the adult and responsible thing to do. So you can get life insurance really easy, super easy, right? You might already have it. It pays out a lump sum, God forbid, if anything were to happen to you and you were to die. Or more importantly, there's something that might be more relevant called family income benefit, which is basically the same thing, but it pays out sort of regular chunks instead of one big lump sum. Either way, they're usually pretty cheap, especially if you're young and healthy. Now, a little tip here, way beyond the scope of this video, but wherever you get this sorted from, ask about it being written under trust or in a trust. It's just basically a fancy way of saying that the money might not be taxed for inheritance tax when your family receives it. Can't explain all the details in this video because it will literally take me all day, but it's just worth asking about. So whoever or wherever you get your life insurance or family income benefits sorted from, ask them the question about should it be written in trust. Trust me that it's well worth asking that question. Look, if you want to drop me an email to find out, find a sort of some help for someone who can help you sort this out properly, just drop me an email and I'll try and give you a hand. So that leads us to step 3, building an emergency fund. Okay. Now, everyone knows that they should have some spare cash around, save for emergencies, right? You've seen this in probably every single personal finance video that's ever existed. The standard advice is 3 to 6 months worth of outgoings that are just sitting in your bank account in case of emergency. Now, look, that's great advice, okay? But I'm going to give you a slightly different take. Now, this is just my view. Save the comments, save all the, oh, you're doing it wrong. This is just my view. And I think you might be able to have a slightly different angle on this as well. Not saying you should do the same. It's just a different perspective. So I personally only ever keep a relatively small actual emergency fund. So in this case, let's say £5,000. That's it, right? That's absolutely nowhere near the 3 to 6 months outgoings that I need under the old laws, under the old guidance. But here's the thing. I always, and I do mean always, I track this religiously, have a 0% interest credit card with at least 12 months of 0% left, and hopefully have a decent credit limit. Now, why do I do that? Well, because firstly, I know how to handle credit cards properly, right? That's the first thing. I trust myself using someone else's money to solve my problems. If something big happens, right, like my car breaks down or my boiler packs in or whatever, I've got that $5,000 for immediate stuff, but then I've got the credit card, a line of credit as a backup until I can sort the situation out and look to my other monies to potentially pay it off. It means that I'm not just hoarding loads of cash, just sitting around doing nothing. I'm quite passionate about this. Again, I'm not advocating this. This is not a recommendation. I don't think that most people should do this. But for me, I trust myself to use a line of credit, use it responsibly, pay off, and never pay a dime in interest. So honestly, and this is really important, only even consider that if you're genuinely responsible and you know that you can handle credit cards. If you're the type who's going to start using a credit card for like random shopping and Deliveroos or whatever, just stick to the 3 to 6 months worth of savings. Be honest with yourself. Don't try and be too smart. I was just trying to offer an alternative view. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking that I'm mental for suggesting a credit card strategy. And look, I get it. It's not for everyone. But I'm very, very interested. Drop me a comment down below and tell me, are you team cash emergency fund only or team strategic credit card use? So just put cash only or credit card. I want to see what the general polling and the general perspective is on this. The point is, obviously, you need some accessible cash. Always. Stuff happens. That's life. Okay, so good. Emergency fund sorted. Well done you. That's the next step. Now, before we can actually start to build wealth for the future, we need to sort out something that is probably actively destroying your wealth right now. High interest debt. That is why step 4 is to attack high interest debt. So I met with this client recently. He's a lovely guy, really, really, really into his investing, like super clued up, was really into it, knew what he was doing, had a great portfolio, was showing me how it all worked and what he chose and why he chose it. I did sit there and I was like, yeah, fair enough. Like this guy knows his apples, right? And he was showing me his portfolio and he was absolutely buzzing because he'd made like 20% of returns in the last year. It's proper chuffed with himself. But then like a bit later on in the meeting, I'm going through his finances and I notice that he's got this credit card debt, like quite a lot of credit card debt. And I'm looking at the interest rate and it's 29%, 29%, right, on this credit card. And I was like, mate, stop investing immediately and just pay off that credit card. Here's the thing. You already know before I say it, right? Paying off that credit card is a guaranteed 29% return. He was a damn good investor, but his investments, there's no guarantees involved at all with that. And it didn't even keep up to the 29%. It was only 20%. Now, you could lose all of that money next year. But with a credit card and credit card debt or any debt, it's definite. You're literally losing 29% every single year you do not pay that off. So before you even think about investing for your future, if you've got high interest debt, I'm talking, like credit cards, payday loans, anything over, I guess, kind of that 6 to 8% mark, you've just got to deal with it first, okay? I know it's boring, but just get rid of it. Now, there's two main ways that people will do that. You've got the debt avalanche method, which is just basically where you list all of your debts by the interest rate, essentially, high to low, obviously. You always pay the minimum on everything and then throw the extra money at the highest rate first. Mathematically, that is the most optimal approach because you're getting rid of that highest debt first. Then there's something called the debt snowball. Now, same thing. List all your debts down, but this time list them by balance. And what you want to do is list them from smallest to largest. So the idea here is that you pay off that small one first. So it's like a psychological win, like you've closed that account and then you roll on to the bigger ones. Now, the question is, which one should you use? Which one's better? Honestly, the best one is whatever one that you'll actually stick to. The best method is the one that works for you, because the single biggest factor in paying off debt, right? It's not maths. It's actually that you follow through and do it. Okay. So just pick a method, stick to it and get it done. Now, a super important point here, actually, obviously what we're talking about here is high interest debt. So some people might actually at this point want to get rid of all debt. At this point, you might want to look at, say, for example, overpaying your mortgage, getting rid of your mortgage, even though, you know, I would certainly class it, and some other people would certainly class it as good debt. There's a way to sort of build, sort of balance building wealth and paying off your mortgage at the same time if you want to do that, rather than just sort of choosing one or the other. I've done a video about it before. I'll link it in the description below so you can just go and check it out. But hey, look, if you want to funnel all of your money into getting rid of your mortgage, then go for it. No right or wrong answers in this one. Step 5. Now, this is all about short-term goals, okay? Now, we've done all of the boring and hard work. You've protected yourself, you've protected your family, you've built an emergency fund, and you've cleared your high interest debt. Brilliant. I'm telling you, if you can just get to that point, you are already wealthy, in my view, right? We're not talking here about winning the lottery. We're talking about financial security and building wealth. If you are secure and you've got a base and you are debt-free and you can look forward rather than worrying about looking backwards or stressing about what is going on in your bank, that is true wealth. But now comes the fun part where you can actually plan your future. This step, as I said, is about short-term goals. I'm talking about things like, you know, holiday, maybe a new car, wedding, whatever you want to achieve in the next few years. Now, the key thing here is this line in the sand of before or after 5 years. So understanding the difference between before 5 years and after 5 years as an objective. Anything under 5 years is classed as short term, okay? And here's what you need to do. Do not go anywhere near investing any money less than 5 years. I'm serious. If you need the money in less than 5 years, just keep it in cash. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And here's why. In the short term, this is a really simplistic chart, but I absolutely love it because it just tells you everything you need to know. In the short term, cash, which is the blue line there, is really, really safe. And investments, which is the red line, is really, really risky. But in the long term, it's the opposite. Cash is risky and investments are, I don't want to say safe, but theoretically safer. Look, what I mean is, if you put your money, say, for example, into the stock market today, and you need that money back in 2 years, it's basically the flip of a coin as to whether you'll be up or down on your money. Markets can go all over the place in the short term, right? They can go up, down, left, right, whatever you want to do. But cash, that's not going anywhere, is it? Because you know that a pound will always be a pound in your bank. You know exactly what you've got. So here's what you do for short-term goals. Just very simply work out how much you need and by when. Let's say in this case, you need 3 grand for a holiday in 18 months time. Well, that is 18 paydays. So you need to save 167 quid per month. Easy, right? You didn't need me to tell you that. But the key point here is just set up a standing order into a regular savings account or even a cash ISA, and you're done. No drama, no stress, no watching the markets and gambling. Now, step 6, long-term goals. Now, remember, we've already handled retirement planning and pensions in the very, very, very first step that we talked about. So this is very different. Now, remember how I said cash is risky in the long term. Let me explain that, because it kind of took me a while to get my head around it and kind of confused me, to be honest with you. Now, this is going to show my age, by the way. When I first started to learn to drive back in 2008, yeah, I know, 17 years ago, I vividly remember that petrol was like just under £1 a litre. I think it was like 96p or something. Anyway, fast forward to today, I filled up the other day and it was £1.40 per litre. Now, that is a 45% increase in 17 years, right? I'm not sure if those figures are like exactly spot on, but it's basically twice as expensive, right? Now, that's crazy to me, but I'm always really, really surprised about like other things, you know, like Freddos and things like that. What is something that you guys have seen recently where you're like, Jesus, how has that gone up by so much since last year, right? Again, like Freddo bars, cinema tickets. I want to hear what the most crazy one that you heard of recently down in the comments below. So give it a go and just let me know, because I'm always astounded at inflation figures. So if I'd have taken £1 back in 2008 and stuck it in my bank account and just left it, that pound would still be £1 today. It's not going anywhere. In 2008, that would have bought me about a litre of petrol, right? And now today, I can only buy about half a litre. That is inflation. And that is why cash is so risky in the long term. It's not that you lose money, it's that your money loses its power to buy stuff. Look, even the worst investment, well, pretty much, has not lost 50% over 17 years, okay? So that is why this is so powerful. Now, what I want to talk to you about next is a really interesting point, what I think anyway. I was doing a seminar recently and about investing and all that sort of stuff. And I asked everyone what they thought investing was all about, right? Like, why do you invest? What's it for? The most people in the room genuinely said to get rich. To get rich, right? And I had to spend the next hour telling them that the purpose of investing is not to get rich at all. The main reason that you invest your money primarily is just to beat inflation, or at very least to keep up with it, right? Getting rich or getting a return above inflation and getting a real return, it's a nice bonus. And yes, look, obviously if you're getting 10, 12, 15% a year while you're investing, then great. But the real goal with investing for most people is just making sure that your money doesn't lose value over time, right? So very simply, if inflation is at, say, 2% and your investment's made 6%, you've really only gained a real return of 4%. The other two is just kept up with prices going up and up. It didn't actually make you any richer. It just stopped you from getting poorer. That's why for long-term goals, that's sort of anything that's more than 5 years away, and not specifically in this case for retirement, because remember, we've already sorted that in step 1 with your pension, you need to invest. So house deposit in 10 years time, kids' school fees, your money needs to work hard to beat that battle with inflation. Look, you now know the exact playbook for turning your income into real wealth, from protecting yourself to building that long-term future. But here's the thing. All of that is pretty much pointless if you don't actually know how to invest your money properly. I mean, look, honestly, where do you even start? What do you buy? How much risk should you take? Going through all of that is way beyond what I can cover in this video. But thankfully, I've made another video that walks you through exactly how to invest as a beginner right here. Give it a click, especially if you've watched any other investing for beginners content before. I look at things very, very differently to most of those other videos. So if you're interested, give it a click and I'll see you there.